Hey everybody, thanks for watching. And before we get into this video, the never pay again sale has been extended. I know a lot of you guys didn't see the message. I didn't put out a video on it, but it's extended 24 more hours. 24 hours, that's it. Then it's gone. This will be the end of it. So you guys again have one final chance to get it. And yeah, it's 99 bucks. That is true. I know a lot of people thought it was spam. And if you get any type of email from me that has Merkable Academy or anything on it, and you get any type of, virus warning or security warning, my site is 100% secure. So whatever it is, it's probably your antivirus protection, but we are not collecting data or whatever it says. This is legit. So if you have any questions or about any links or any information you get from me, if you have any questions about it, just send me an email at therealmerkaba@gmail.com. I will clarify it, but any message you get from Merkable Academy is legit. It's fine. No viruses or anything like that. You can open it up or just send me an email and, I'll clear it up. But yeah, this is it. It's like way super low because this is the last day, last 24 hours. It's important because, you got to understand with having the app, which by the way, the link is in the description for the Android Merkable Academy Pro app. It's in the App Store right now. I put a link to it in the description. So if you have Android devices, you can go ahead and click that link in the description and take you straight to Google Play Store. And you can download the Merkable Academy Pro app. And yes, it will be out for iOS. We cleared through basically everything. We're in the final steps. It looks like it's going to be launching when it does. Same thing. I'll do a video. I'll give you guys the link. It's important because you guys got to understand what I've been talking about for, years now. Everything is censored with YouTube. It's a problem. There's issues. You guys are not getting alerts. Having the app, you can get direct push notifications to the phone. Also, it'll be a lot easier to control the platform, live streaming. I would rather do a live stream on my own platform than have to go through, YouTube or something else. So that way, having the app, live stream, if you are a never pay again member, you will have access to that. You will get an alert. You won't miss any videos. You will get an alert whenever something comes out. An alert will go to your phone for those never pay again members. Any type of stock information, any information at all, whether it may be something important or quick or fast or something you need to know right away or to watch out for, we can do it with the app. The app is the best thing. I know most people have iOS, Apple phones, iPhones, so it's important to get that out. So this is, why it's huge, and I wanted to make it available, for, everybody. And it's, if you can't do it at this price, it's just, you don't want to. So I figure this is it. If you actually want it, it's been around for a while. If you want it, you'll get it at this price. I don't want to hear nothing after this. This is crazy. So 99 bucks, last day, 24 hours. When everything starts coming out after that, don't try to jump on and try to get it because it's not going to be available. That's it. So you'll see, what's coming. As I said, once the iOS drops, the site it won't go down. It'll just change. You'll see what happens. It'll be automatic. So a lot more stuff will be coming to it. And, the iOS app is a little different. And, it's just because, iPhone is different. But as I said, it's out for Android. Link is in the description. You can go ahead and grab it, and I'll update you guys with the iOS app, and I'll drop a video when it releases because we have to go through a few things. But thanks to everybody who's supporting, everybody who took advantage of the sale. 24 hours, take advantage of it. It will be gone. If you didn't turn on alerts to this YouTube channel, you probably missed the announcement from before or missed the video when it popped up when I was promoting it. So, here it is. Like I said, I appreciate everybody's support, everybody who's been supporting, but it's here. Once again, make sure you guys take advantage, and let's get into this video. we've been getting into a lot of, Greek history and Greek information over the last few videos pertaining to the Bible, of course. And we're going to get into a lot of new information in this video, you know, pertaining to Greek history and understanding how, we can't look at Greek mythology and just pass it off as mythology. Uh, Talked about Homer and the Iliad, Homer's Odyssey, how much these stories we find in the Bible and how much the characters are similar and the stories are similar to stories in the Bible. So it's one of the questions I always get from Christians, and they just can't fathom and believe that, Greek mythology is older than the Bible. Because if you want to believe in the Bible and the story of the Bible, you have to believe that, Moses wrote it in the Old Testament, the Torah, and all this stuff was happening in the beginning of time. So God creating the people, Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, so on and so forth. And people believe that this stuff is before, what we see in Greece and ancient Egypt. So if you're going to believe that, then you're going to look at Greek mythology and say, well, they knew the story and they copied it. But of course, we know there's absolutely no proof that the Bible is true, the Old Testament is true, and that this stuff happened before. We got to look at what we can prove. And what we can prove and what we know for sure is that Homer's Odyssey, the Iliad, ancient Egyptian texts, pyramid texts, everything I showed you guys in Unis and Teti and Pepi, all that stuff predates anything biblical. Those stories predate anything biblical. We can't find nothing. So got into the story, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, and how the Septuagint supposed to came into existence. Talked about that enough. We got into so much history about the Greeks. And of course, the Greeks are the Hebrews in the Bible. If you haven't been keeping up with Greek mythology in the last few videos I put out, definitely want to get caught up and understand that connection, going back and looking into Greek mythology volume 3. But real quick, understand, what I'm putting out and what a lot of people are not talking about. And it's another thing real quick. We got to understand that we are still in this time of information. The internet is not 100 years old. We're really getting into the internet and putting out information. And then people who have the time, and the money to go and actually look. So a lot of people watch my stuff because I've been to these countries. I've looked, I've done the research. So, people watch. But this stuff is new. So we can't make it like, oh, everybody know about this information. And then there's a lot of books people won't spend the money on to find the information. But we got to remember that this stuff is like we're still putting out the information to reveal this deception today. And that's, what I've been doing in these videos. So we look at this, we look at, can't prove anything with the Septuagint, can't prove their story. We know the Greeks, they fit the Hebrew Israelites in the Bible. There's no other people that fit them like the Greeks. Nobody. So what they have done was put their history, put their story in the Bible as the Hebrew Israelites, the chosen people, so on and so forth. Nobody was out conquering. Nobody was out doing what we see the Hebrew Israelites doing, but the Greeks. And it all fits when you start digging into the information. It's going to make a whole bunch more sense when we get into this. So we have this history. We know, talked about with the Persians, the connection between Alexander and the Persian Empire. I showed you guys how the Persians were having treaties with the Greeks before Kemet fell. They was working with the Greeks before Kemet fell. So we know there was this connection, this agreement that the two had. And as I said, the Greeks, they couldn't just go in and conquer Kemet. They couldn't go in there and just do that because they had people living there. They had this connection with them. Who told the Greeks to do what they did? There's no way they just, came into Kemet stupid. We had to teach them astrology, math, science, so on and so forth. And they amassed this strategy and this kind of thinking to outwit, outsmart, overthrow the ancient Egyptians on such a massive scale. So they got to think about that, one. Two, I talked about how the Egyptians changed the burial situation, where they are now being buried at the Valley of the Kings, and the old ways they went down to basically say, I'll be back. They stopped doing that. And Temple of Osiris says, don't come back here. So we don't know if it was some sort of changing of power that only the people at the top knew. And the Greeks had orders from whoever at the top to do what they've done, because it's just nothing fits but that when you really think about it. So they were smart enough to hide behind the Persians. And this is their MO, their modus of operation that we've been seeing since then. This is how we know it's the same people. They are like, the Sith. Perfect people to put them with, the Sith. Because you don't know who's at the top of the Sith. Remember, they didn't know. If you watch Star Wars, they had no clue. So the Sith, he's hiding behind the Senate, but he's really a Dark Lord of the Sith, which is only two. And he's running everything. Palpatine was running everything when you pay attention. But he was really the Dark Lord that they were supposed to be fighting against. So he's hiding behind the Senate. And then he has the stormtroopers. And then he has these other galactic empires, these other empires that can do his dirty work and his bidding. But nobody knows that it's really the Sith Lord behind the scenes controlling everything. It is what they have done, these, let's just call them white folks at the top. So you have with the Greeks, at this time, using the Persians. So they're basically going to set up a deal with the Persians, gave the Persians the keys to the back door. And if you can imagine back then, if the Egyptians are hip to the Persians coming in trying to conquer, they have to set up a strategy. And it would be in the best interest of the Greeks to join with the Egyptians to know what you guys are going to do, because they might come and try to invade us. So we want to help you guys and be with you guys. So now the Greeks know what the Egyptians are going to be planning, and they can alert the Persians, which made it real easy for the Persians to come in and conquer. Persians come in and conquer. Remember, all of the reports of the war between the Greeks and the Persians were like that. Said Alexander wasn't even there. They basically handed them the keys to Egypt. And you would think if the Greeks and the ancient Egyptians were cool as they have seemed to be when you look at history, why would they allow this to happen? Why would they not give back power to the Egyptian people, so on and so forth? So we got to look at all this. So Alexander, basically gets hand over the keys to Kemet. They don't return it over to the people. It's, reports they was talking about how the people of Kemet liked him and how he might have had a change of heart or mind or what have you to the way things was going to go. And that's why he was killed, because he was definitely killed. There is a hieroglyph, a carving, a relief of Alexander in Kemet. Multiple civilizations spoke of him. So, the dude did exist. And it's a myth as to where his body ended up at. So nobody really knows. But there's a lot to the history. I dug into this a little bit and talked about how they supposedly found his body in Illinois in America, along with a bunch of Egyptian artifacts and some queen and what have you. We don't know if that was true or not. So a lot to that. But what ensued was the War of the Successors, or the War of the Diadochi. And we had these African lands basically taken over by the Greeks. So eventually Rome would come into power, and then Rome would basically seemingly defeat the Greeks. But we're going to get into this. It's a deep stuff to this. But and they come into power. But we have to look at what happens next, because again, talk about this, how Rome had their civilization, their customs set up the way that they wanted them, and they completely started to adopt the Greek mythologies and culture and custom Hellenization. They continued it in those territories, and we see Heracles change from Heracles to Hercules, and we see this whole adoption of Greek mythology and Roman mythology. So a lot of people don't know when this change happened, but it happened during this time. But we can find, a lot of these Roman mythological figures before the conquest of the Greeks, which shows they had some type of interaction with each other. And the issue with all this is it should be obviously clear. One, we don't have the original Septuagint. We can't prove the story of LXX is true, because LXX has been since proven to be a Jewish forgery. And I talked about Hecataeus and how all the information on the ancient Jews is pseudo. Nobody has any real information on them as if they didn't exist. We have these facts. We have the fact that when you go back and look at ancient Greek mythology, we find biblical stories, which I'm going to show you even deeper in this video. So nobody is, caring about this information because we've been brainwashed and taught the Bible the way we've been taught it. And even if you was to put this information out, nobody really cares except for people that's into what we are into. And they don't understand how this information is important to really unlock the keys to us and understand history and our history. And to really unlock the key to yourself, you need to understand what happened in our history, and understand why this stuff is important and what information they was holding on to that was important, that pertains to us. What is it? What is it about us? What's going on? So all this stuff is important. The mythologies, the history is important to know and understand. And the more you dig into it, the more you unlock information, as you probably figured out on your own. So this history, if you was to go back and find information before biblical religion that's basically showing it existed before biblical religion, it would change your mind about the Bible, right? So anybody who does their research, you have found it. You have went out and you have found clear, concrete information that shows the biblical stories in the Bible must have come from the Greeks. Had to, because this stuff is before. Now, if you want to believe the Bible and believe Moses and the Levites, and he wrote this whole Torah out, and it was an oral Torah, and they had all this information, and that the biblical stories happened before Greek mythology, we can't prove none of this, then you will believe that the Greeks copied from, real life, because there was no Bible yet. So this stuff can be, 1000 BCE, and there was a Bible for them to get this information. They're in two different locations. There's no way they should know what they know unless it's what happened to them. So then you have a decision to make. Do you believe the Greeks or do you believe the Bible? More information and proof supports the Greeks than the Bible. So we talked about the Garden of Hesperides story, and anybody who's looked into this story can clearly see that this is where the Garden of Eden story must have come from. It's very similar to the Garden of Eden story. And again, as I said, most people look at it and say, well, the Garden of Eden story is, first, but we can't prove that it's first. If we're going to go into mythology or biblical history and take that as fact, then it's first. But in proven history, in this real world, there is nothing biblical that predates the story. So in the Garden of Hesperides story, for those of you who have looked, we see you have the serpent in the tree, you have the apples of immortality, you have the story with Heracles, which will be Hercules, and Noah is also in this story, by a different name, which we'll get into in a second. But the biggest part is understanding that, this story, the Garden of Hesperides, begins with two people, and we have Zeus and Hera. So it says here, Zeus and Hera, the first couple according to the Greeks, seated together on the east frieze of the Parthenon from about 435 BC. The Judeo-Christian tradition considers Adam as the father of all humanity. The term Father Zeus is a description of the king of the gods that appears over 100 times in the ancient writings of Homer. According to the ancient poet Hesiod, Zeus is the father of God's men, the gods being deified ancestors. Genesis 3:20 describes Eve as the mother of all the living. In a hymn of invocation, the 6th century BC lyric poet Alcaeus refers to Hera as mother of all. As the first wife, the Greeks worshipped Hera as the goddess of marriage. As the first mother, the Greeks worshipped her as the goddess of childbirth. Both the Judeo-Christian traditions and the Greek religious tradition insist that their respective first couples came out of an ancient paradise with a serpent-entwined fruit tree. Two opposite spiritual standpoints, the former looking to the Creator as the source of truth, and the latter looking to the serpent for it, share the same factual basis. Again, this is something you're going to see because people are very careful about what they say that's in the professional field, especially pertaining to history. So they don't want to risk their credentials. They don't want to risk their position, their jobs, or what have you, saying the wrong thing that's going to offend people in power. So everybody know, don't say nothing about the Jews, don't say nothing pertaining to them, but you still got a job to do. So it's clear as day. They know, anybody that's a real researcher understands that clearly this, story is first. This Greek story comes before the Adam and Eve story, and we don't have anything that's concrete that, shows that it came, before the Garden of Hesperides. Now, we know that this stuff is older. We have the pottery. A lot of these stories, we have Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, of course, but we still have a lot of ancient Greek artifacts because the civilization still stands, still exists. So the pottery is in museums. They still find this stuff to this day. These stories were put on pottery, or we find them. You've seen them. So it says here, ancient Greek vase artists painted images of biblical figures, Noah and Nimrod, over 2,000 years ago. And Nimrod, as you will understand, will be Heracles or Hercules, same person. The book of Genesis describes human history. Ancient Greek religious art depicts human history. While their viewpoints are opposite, the recounted events and characters match each other in convincing detail. This brief article focuses on how Greek religious art portrayed Noah and how it portrayed Nimrod and his successful rebellion against Noah's authority. So understanding, wait a minute, how is it that we have the story of Noah, you'll see the different name, Noah, in Greek mythology? How is this possible? So in this story, it's a post-flood story where you basically have Heracles or Hercules trying to gain back, the planet for the mortals, trying to gain it back. And he's trying to get the apples of immortality to do so. So it says here, Heracles goes for the apples. The seated man on the vase to our right of the tree is Nimrod/Heracles. The goal of Nimrod/Heracles in the post-flood world was to push Noah and his God out of the picture, dispatch those who disagree with his own mankind-exalting rule, and get back to the ancient garden for another bite of the serpent's apple. It's anti-creator enlightenment and the promise of immortality without God. Sounds familiar, right? On a vase depiction from, this is 450 BC, Nimrod/Heracles makes off with the apple as one of the Hesperides gestures for him to stay with them. And this is Nereus, or the Greek Noah. The Greeks knew exactly who Noah was. They call him Nereus, the wet one, the Hellas Guron, the salt sea old man. Above, we see three different depictions of Nereus from ancient Greek vases. On all three, he looks very old. He is seated as if on a throne, and he holds a scepter, a symbol of rule. The simple artistic communication. Here is the old man who ruled. Genesis 6:9 speaks highly of Noah's character. Noah is a just man, flawless, became he in his generations. With God walks Noah. The ancient Greek poet Hesiod says essentially the same thing about Nereus. But Pontos, the great sea, was father of truthful Nereus, who tells no lies. Eldest of his sons, they call him the old gentleman because he is trustworthy and gentle and never forgetful of what is right. But the thoughts of his mind are mild and righteous. Goes on to say, and remember this depiction of him holding that rod in his hand. Says, Nimrod Heracles usurps the authority of Noah Nereus. Nimrod Heracles begins his serpent and mankind exalting rebellion by nullifying the authority of Noah. The prophet of God who brought humanity through the flood had to be pushed out of the picture and his rule brought to an end. Above, on a red figure bobbing, Nimrod Heracles knocks Noah Nereus, who holds the scepter of rule, out of the way, invalidating his authority and replacing it with his own. Heracles wears the lion's head and carries his club as signs of his great prowess. He forces Noah to drop the fish, a sign of his now disrupted authority in connection with the flood. So remember the lion's head and the club. We're going to come back to this later to make a point. It says, after the flood, God instructed mankind to be fruitful and increase and fill the earth and subdue it. That's Genesis 9:1. That included subjecting every living animal of the earth, all of the fishes, of the sea and every flyer of the heavens. Greek art portrayed Heracles as the master hunter doing exactly that in a post-flood world. First three labors of Hercules, and we heard about the labors of Hercules. I talked about this before, but these are the first three labors of Heracles. And the reason why Rome took over it and brought out Hercules is to cover this story up, because we see more of Hercules, the Roman side, than the Greek side, because we know of Hercules and not Heracles, but that's more Roman. But we know about the labors of Hercules. The first three labors of Nimrod, Heracles, reconstructed above by Holmes Bryant as they appear on the temple of Zeus at Olympia. Boasts of his conquest of the most powerful animals of the land, water, and air, the lion of Nemea, the fearsome hydra of Lima, and the vicious man-attacking bird of the lake, Symphalis. Athena accompanied him on all three of these labors, although the sculpture had no room for her in their depiction of him killing the water monster. So to me, clear as day, simple. You take the story from Genesis, you take the story about Noah, take the story about Heracles, and then we know that the Romans took from the Greeks, and gave us Roman gods. And it's clear as day. They're telling you right here, well, wait a minute, this is where Rome got this figure from. The story predates anything biblical. We have the story. We know it predates anything biblical. So why is we believing this Noah story? And it's very simple. Nobody taught it to us. Very simple. Nobody taught us. The story's been here longer than the Bible. Nobody taught us. Nobody told us about the story. So if he was an ancient Greek scholar, this is why a lot of researchers and scholars don't believe in the Bible. They know where it came from. This is why I laugh at people who be talking shit, because I know you haven't done any real extensive research. And there's no way you can say the Bible predates this when we don't have one that predates it. When you have an actual Greek person who is responsible for giving us the Bible, we can see clearly where they got their stories from. We know where they got it from. They got it from their own mythology. Plain and simple. So it's not hard to put it together and see what took place. But this is one of the things that a few people are pointing out in their argument about the Bible. It also coincides with the Deucalion Fair flood story, which we have in Greek. Also, the Pandora's box, which we have in Greek. We have Hercules, and Samson, and it's not a coincidence that they put these two together in movies, telling you straight to your face what it is. So I know some people teeter-totter, some of you even teeter-totter with religion. You're seeing this stuff come to fruition as far as so-called Bible prophecy, but you're not understanding. You're not understanding, and then anything that comes up that looks biblical, that looks correct, people run back to the Bible. But it's clear as day where they got the stuff from. Clear as day. You can't find a story that predates this pottery. You take a look at this pottery. It's here. It exists. We have it. It's dated. It's agreed upon by all researchers. The dating is correct. Greece still exists. It still stands. You go over there and you will see this stuff. It's still there. When Frank Gaudio pulled that stuff out of the water, he pulled out a lot of this pottery. The artifacts that we need to prove what we're saying exist, they are real. When it comes to the Hebrews and their story, nothing. And what we do find is suspect. It looked like some stuff that anybody could have wrote on, and nobody agrees on it. It's not agreed upon by researchers. So understand how that works. Somebody finds it and says what they believes it to be. It is tested. And if everybody confirms the same thing, then boom, you have something that's proven. This is not the case with any artifact that's supposed to be pertaining to the biblical Jews. So the Greeks had their own plan, ready to come up with this whole story to put themselves in as being this people, until Rome came in and intervened. Now, I talked about Dr. Joseph Yehuda in the book Hebrew is Greek, and how he's clearly given us this understanding that, hey, the Arabic and the Hebrew language came from the Greeks. Now, this is the thing, because I know some of you did the research on this, and I know you ran into the problem that most of the Hebrews cite when it comes to Joseph Yehuda. Not just him, the people of Greece who's trying to put this information out. So understand this. Let's make it real clear real fast. Understand, this is what they believe. One, they believe that the Greeks created the Hebrew and Arabic language. what they also believe is it's some kind of conspiracy with these so-called Jews, and they, or a sect of Jews, which would be Greeks, basically piggyback off of Greek history to give us the Old Testament, and the New Testament. So they believe that this stuff happened. Oh, the Bible is real. This stuff is true. But these so-called Hebrews are lying about the Israelites, because they see what I just told you.